Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Charlie was a good man, good as any man can be. Tall in stature, strong in faith, and he practiced what he preached. A Christian with conviction, I've heard many a people say Charlie was gonna be the president someday. At a campus up in Utah on a bright September day, the crowd was packed and rustling, engaged in free debate, till a bullet from a rooftop ended young Charlie's life. Dear God, they killed him in front of his children and his wife. Help us understand now, Jesus, dry our eyes to see. Teach us how to deal with all this senseless tragedy. Turn this rage and anger into something you can use. Use Charlie's death now to turn us back to you. With open conversation, he exposed their evil ways. Those demonic institutions, gathering souls and washing brains. When we murder peaceful dialogue, we give birth to bloody war. Charlie knew free speech is worth dying for. Help us understand now, Jesus, dry our eyes to see. Teach us how to feel now through this senseless tragedy. Turn our lust for vengeance into something you can use. Help Charlie's death now turn us back to you. He was loved and tough and honest, and for that his haters tried to silence him with violence and to slander him with lies. But all they did was make a martyr. Now there will come a reckoning. Charlie's voice is louder now than it's ever been. Charlie's voice is louder now than it's ever been.
I am surrounded by celebrities. Where's Louie? Louie the Dachshund is not in the studio today, but I do have my brother, Randy Fielder, who is now a full-fledged Floridian.
I am.
You are. Welcome aboard, Randy. I told you I was going to drag you in here every chance I got.
It's all right. The pleasure's all mine.
And we've called up there to the store in Sterrett, Alabama, where they have the phone. And we've had them to run up the road there and get my buddy Nubbin Moore to the phone. And Nubbin's with us again today. How are you doing, Nub?
Man, I'm doing great. Can't complain.
Well, that's good. You're always doing great, man. You're my inspiration, besides being my hero and being my hunting buddy and sometimes fishing buddy, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But no, I'm glad to hear you doing good. You just took a trip with family here this last weekend. I want to hear about that. I didn't hear any big fish stories coming out of Alabama here last weekend. What's going on?
Well, I didn't have many stories to tell. Now, we went down to Kings Lake, which is about, 40 or 50 miles southwest of Tuscaloosa, to a place this side of Livingston. It's owned by Jim King, who used to be the college coach down at Livingston. And he's got several hundred acres down there, and he's got 3 nice lakes on it. He has 2 cabins on it, and each lake has got a boathouse with 2 or 3 boats on it, and it's a pay lake. You pay to go down there. And we being start of dove season, we had a place for doves. We had dished it up and had doves coming in. And, me being a coon hunter, I'm not much of a shot at these fast flying doves. So my stepson Jeff killed several. I killed 3. No, I think I killed 4. I killed 2 each day is all. And I shot up 2 or 3 boxes of shells. So that tells you I missed more than I hit. The second day, I did start off pretty good. I shot and missed. And the next shot, I killed a dove. So I thought, I'm 50% or betting 500. Okay, well, I didn't kill another bird that day. After a couple of boxes of shells, I did some shooting and I scared the fire out of them, but I didn't kill many. But so that's about the dove hunt. Jeff and Scott, 2 or 3, my son killed a few. But the fishing was really not good either. We got down there Friday around noon and then got everything unloaded. We fished some that afternoon. The fish were not biting. So we did catch a few fish, not many. I think the biggest fish I caught weighed about 3 pounds. So, it was not a good fishing week, but we had a good time. My son and his girlfriend, Debbie, and my wife, Becky, was there, and her son, Jeff, her son, Scott, and his wife, Christy, and Jeff's buddy from his work was there by his staff. So we stayed in 2 different cabins, and then we met every night at one cabin to have dinner together. And so we had a good weekend, a good family time together, sitting on the porch on rocking chairs, overlooking the lake, which is peaceful. Other than that, we just had a good time. We ate plenty. I probably gained a couple of pounds because I normally don't eat that good when I'm at home. I eat plenty, but you know how it is. You eat more when you're off like that. But we had a good time, and everybody caught a fish or 2. But now last year we caught some big fish. I've got pictures on my phone, 4 and 5 and 6 pounders, but nothing big. I think Scott's wife, Christy, caught one. It weighed almost 5 pounds. That was the biggest fish.
That's a good one, as we say.
That was a good one. But, other than a good time was had by all, that's all I got to say about the trip.
Do you believe any of that, Randy?
I do, because Nubbin said it.
Yeah, that's right. And I've never caught Nubbin in an outright lie. I promise you. He might have stretched one of them coon hunting stories a little bit.
You stretch some, and that's okay. But, I tell him, Jeff brings this thing, he calls it a D-lyre. It's a scale that you weigh your fish. And I told him, I said, don't weigh mine. If I think it weighs 7 pounds, that's good enough. But he'll put a scale on it and it weighs 4.2.
Oh, my goodness. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I said, so I tell him, leave that D-lyre in the truck. Don't get it out.
That Jeff's a pretty sharp cookie, I tell you what.
Yeah,
you're blessed to have some good sons, brother, and I've met them, and they're all great guys. And your son Scott, and Becky's got a Scott, and
right.
Of course they're yours too now. So,
right,
but
for almost 30 years.
Yeah,
we've been
about
together
that.
to be 30 years this February.
Well, I know that when you get together with those guys, you're going to have a good time. Miss Becky didn't cook anything for you while you were down there, did she?
No, Debbie, Scott's girlfriend, done most of the cooking.
Oh, okay.
She cooked the meals, and I told her, I said, next year we're just going to take some Vienna sausage and some sardines and some ham and cheese and make sandwich. We're not going to do all that fancy cooking.
Does that remind you of anything, Nubbin?
Yeah, that's what we do at the White River.
Well, that one night that we went down on the South Unit, for our listeners, we talked a good bit about the South Unit. Randy,
oh, yeah.
You haven't had the privilege going out there with us, but you need to. We're going to have to drag you out there one of these trips. But Nubbin and I'll tell this story as quick as I can, Nubbin. You jump in. But before I tell that story, when you were talking about that 3-pound fish, okay, it reminded me of that old boy. Somebody was telling their fish story, and he said, "Well, did you catch any henway?" And the other guys said, "What's a henway?" He said, "Oh, about 3 pounds."
Right.
That was as funny as I get, folks. All right. No, back to that story about the White River. You remember I think it was the first year maybe or second that we went down out there, and we decided to go down on the South Unit and do some scouting. And we did. But there, as we drove around down there, I think it's around that Alligator Lake area, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't that where we went? Yeah. We were driving around some camps, and of course, deer season's in when we're out there. It's bow season. And we saw this guy had a nice buck hung up there at his camp. And so we decided we'd just stop and talk to him about his deer. Well, we had planned one of those suppers like you just mentioned. We were going to do that canned Vienna sausage and potted meat and crackers and, eat like kings. But when we stopped there at that camp, he had that fire going already, and he was getting ready to fix supper, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's getting ready to cook some deer meat.
Yeah, and he was, he said, "You boys are welcome to stay supper with me." And we said, "What you going to have?" And he said, "Well, I got this backstrap here." And I said, "Nah, we couldn't eat nothing like that." No, and he said, what did he say? He was going to have some potatoes with it and something else. And I said, "Show me them potatoes, man. I'll get to peeling." I wanted to get started peeling before he changed his mind. But boy, we had a good supper, didn't we?
Yeah, that sounds better than Vienna sausage you get potted meat.
Yeah, man, we had that. He said, "I don't have much but just some crackers to roll these backstraps in." But he was deep frying them there in a fish cooker. And, oh, man, it was just good. Just good. So the good Lord provides,
That's right. He does provide.
Oh, boy. Well, I wanted to go have Randy a little bit to share with you some of the coon hunts. I've had him on the podcast before, and I know that Randy didn't get the bug on this coon hunting quite as bad as I did in the same way that I did. But nonetheless, there were a few years there that he was really dead after this coon hunting. And we had some pretty good dogs back then. And I think any coon hunting story's only as good as the dogs or as good as you can make them sound. Anyway. But
add a little flavor to it.
That's right. And Nubbin, I know you got a wealth of coon hunting stories, and that's what we want to talk about today. We're just going to swap some. We may need Jeff's D-lyre before we're done. If we get to talking about how big they were and all that. But Randy, what was the first dog that we left off down there with you in Virginia when I was in? Maybe it was before I went to Michigan. Did you have dogs down there before I took off to Michigan in '83? I believe it was.
No.
Okay. Do you remember the first one that you hunted with that Dad and I sent over there?
Well, I oftentimes got dogs that had already served their purpose for you and Dad. and for me, they were just pleasurable, just for pleasure, just fun. I had some of the older dogs. I had Fancy. I had Hoss. I had old Jim. I had some different dogs down through the years.
I think you had maybe Bronco instead of Hoss.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. We had an old dog named Hoss a long time ago, Nubbin. That's the one that really made a coon hunter out of me. He was, I could take him to the night hunts, and he'd run in a tree. He didn't much care about what the other dogs were doing. And he wasn't probably I don't know how fast he was on track, but he had a real good nose and he was accurate, and he'd stay treed. And that's what I needed as a young competition hunter, But anyway, yeah. Old Bronco was probably my all-time favorite. And I know, Nubbin, you had old Hank. Was Hank probably your all-time favorite dog, or did you have one that you liked better?
Well, I've had 2 or 3 that I really liked over the years, but he was probably the easiest or the best dog I had that I could win with, because he had a distinct locate, and if he ever located, he was going to stay regardless. And when he'd locate, I'd tree him. I remember one night we turned loose on the UKC. It's a state hunt, I think. It's in Coleman. And this guy carried us out to some woods, and he said, we're going to turn loose right here. So his luck would have it, we turned dogs loose. My dog didn't go 50 yards, and he opened and located. So I struck him and treed him, and this kid was along. He said, so fast? And I said, well, yeah. And he had a coon trade. It just lucky for us that we turned loose right where a coon was at,
Yeah. Don't take me long to look at a horseshoe, right?
Yeah, that little kid, he said, so fast? I'll never forget that.
Boy, that's a sight. And, I can't think about little kids and night hunts without thinking about your neighbor down there, Trey Perrin. Mm-hmm. I remember Trey when he was just little. How little was he when you remember him going hunting with his daddy?
When he was 8 or 9 years old, and he'd go to the hunts with his daddy and hunt a dog when he was 10, and he's 30 or 32 years old now, so that's been a while.
Oh, yeah, Trey's a good young man. I always enjoy going with Trey and being around him, and he's full of it. He's not like his daddy. His daddy's kind of quiet, but Trey, there ain't no quiet around Trey.
That's right. Jamie called me last night when we'd been off to the doctor. Older we get, we go to the doctor more than we do anything. I had to take my bride, Becky, to the doctor. When we got home, I'd been gone most of the day, and Jamie called, you want to go hunt tonight? And I said, no. And he said, didn't take you long after that.
That's that old stale joke. They call them dad jokes now about the old boy walked in the blacksmith shop, and the guy's had a horseshoe there in the forge, and he reached down to grab that horseshoe, and he jerked his hand back real quick, and the old boy said, burn you? He said, no, just don't take me long to look at a horseshoe. That's what that reminded me of right there. Well, Randy, we won't go in all the details, all you boys' ailments, but Randy, he's been going through some stuff too, and so, that's just all part of it, I've been pretty lucky. I'm just in the complaining stage. I don't think there's anything seriously wrong with me at all, except the number of years that are adding up rather quickly for me. And so I've been blessed. The Lord's been very, very good to me. A few years ago, I had to go in and get recap on a couple arteries, and that sort of thing. But been in good health. But that's all part of life. It's all goes with the territory, don't it? Well, Randy, what about those early dogs? They're plot hounds. Little background, the Bronco dog that I like so much came from Barry Tarleton down in Greenville, Tennessee. His Roberta female was the dam of that litter, and Oliver Smith's Cascade Big Timber was the sire. You know, we live in a world of conspiracy theories, and there was more conspiracy theories about that timber dog than any dog that ever walked, except maybe Dale Brandenburger's Pioneer Drum. I mean, every guy that you ran into had a different story about what the dog's breeding was, what his background was, Drum was a big hound. Was he part bloodhound? Timber, this breeder claimed that, he was in the background of Timber, and another one claimed it was him, and some others said this and that and all. And I mean, it was a drama. It was a soap opera back in those days. But the one thing I recall about Cascade Big Timber, everybody that I ever talked to that hunted with him said he was fast. He was the fastest hound I ever hunted with, and one of the best bear dogs I ever hunted with. And then, of course, old Drum, the other one that I mentioned, he won the first Autumn Oaks. And, amid all those Walker dogs and all that back in 1960, he was the winner. So, anyway, but old Bronco was from that Cascade Timber, Tarleton's Roberta, and I just liked that dog. Randy, when I first started hunting him, I coon hunted him with Old Fancy, the female you mentioned.
Right.
And she was my dad's bear dog, and she really became the best of the best over the years, I think, especially with her heart, desire, speed, determination. You could outrun a pack of bear dogs at times, would not quit. But I trained Bronco with her. And I remember a story over on the Isaiah Kidd farm at Sinks Grove, West Virginia. I'd gotten the idea, Nubbin, I don't know, did you ever coon hunt with a shotgun?
Fred had a shotgun one time, because when we went up to Memphis, moved up there, Fred would hunt on that national forest up there. You couldn't take a 22, you had to take a shotgun.
I guess
so. He had a 12 gauge with a 36-inch barrel on it, and that's what we'd take when we'd go over there.
Man, that's a cannon. That's a long barrel there, buddy.
It is, yeah.
You did. Well,
reach up and touch them.
Yeah, well, we carried, my dad, you just kind of do with what you got. My dad had a Model 12 Winchester, 30-inch full choke. And that's the first 12-gauge shotgun I ever shot. Did you ever shoot that old gun, Randy? Well, you've got it.
I have that gun. Yes, I've shot that gun.
Yeah. Did you ever coon hunt with a shotgun?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Well, the reason why that we wanted is just what you said, Nubbin. The reason why we wanted to hunt with the shotgun back in those mountains when coon season came in, the leaves were all still on. And those trees are tall in the mountains. Those oaks, some of them are way up there, Well, you'd get a glimmer of an eye, and you'd know where the coon was. Now, fellas, for those of you who haven't been around as long as we have, we didn't have any thermal imaging scopes. We barely had a light that would shine to the top of the tree. We had an old 4-volt wheat light with a wet cell battery was basically what we hunted with. Nubbin, what did you hunt with the first, besides a car? Did you start with a carbide light?
I did. We had a carbide light, and then I wound up getting a wheat light later on. And then I had that till we got these better lights. But yes, sir, I started out with a carbide light. You had to carry a little carbide in your pouch, and you had to carry some water with you to put in it.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, you had to get innovative, and that was not good. I heard guys that kind of, used other methods of putting water in there.
When you climb a tree, you had to put your water in there, and that didn't smell good.
No, but, that's what, but here's my story, and I'll get to it real quick. And I decided I was going to buy a shotgun just for coon hunting. So I went down to a local hardware store there in my hometown of West Virginia, and I bought an H&R single barrel shotgun. Mm-hmm. Back in the mountains, we called those a poke stalk. Did you ever hear them called that?
No, haven't.
Randy's nodding over here.
I can't hear nodding, Randy.
That's it. Well, anyway, I guess because that long barrel, that hollow barrel, you could look right down it, and it looked like the stalk of a pokeberry bush. So they called it a poke stalk. But anyway, 12 gauge, couldn't have anything less. Number 4 high brass shells. Mm-hmm. I love those Super X Winchester, those red plastic ones. I'd get a box of those at the beginning of squirrel season. I'd count them every day, see how many I had against how many squirrels I killed. And it'd probably take me about a whole season, to use up that box of shells. But anyway, back to the story. I had Old Fancy. I had Bronco, this dog. He was just a pup, about 10, 11 months old, hunting on the Isaiah Kidd Farm in Monroe County, West Virginia. Dogs we'd go back to the back of the fields behind the house where the pasture fields began to turn up and become the foothills of the mountain back there that was called the Knobs. And it was just up a hollow, down a hollow, all the way around that country. And dogs could get out of hearing on you if you weren't careful. But anyway, Fancy ran this coon up the left-hand side of a little drainage that come down through there. It may have been the head end of what we called the Benlow Hollow. But anyway, she treed up there. And Bronco came in there and was treeing with her. So I take that shotgun and I aim. I want to kill this coon, graveyard dead, as Jerry Clower would say. And I took aim on that thing, and right on his nose, I held it like Dad used to tell me when a rabbit would come and stop. He said, just hold right on his nose, when you shoot him. And I shot. And man, that thing, it sounded like that Mr. Eubanks up there, that wildcat, he climbed up there and said, shoot up in here among us. That thing was tearing that oak tree up there. And he didn't fall out. Now, number 4 shot in a 12-gauge shotgun will kill a raccoon. So anyway, I shot 2 or 3 times before I knocked him out. And I've got a picture of that. Maybe I'll put it on Facebook when I post up the announcement about this podcast. But anyway, that coon had just one toe on a front foot, and it was a big coon. And I've got a picture of Fancy standing on the tailgate of my truck with that coon. But what happened? Why didn't I kill that coon right away? So I go back home, and I get some targets, and I go out behind the house there where we go squirrel hunting, and I patterned that shotgun, and it was shooting 11 inches low. So when I thought I was hitting him in the head, I was hitting him right down there in the fun spot, I guess.
That's right.
And he was not a happy camper. And, I asked people, I said, what? And I tried that several times, and that gun was shooting that far low. And guys said, well, you can pack sand in the barrel and bend it. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I never tried it.
No. But anyway, I found a new home for that shotgun. I don't know that I told all I knew about that shotgun when I sold it. But I didn't say it was a real good true shooting shotgun. I know that. But anyway, that was hunting with Bronco and Fancy. I told you a big long tale there to tell you that. But those were good dogs. Fancy came from Everett Weems in Salem, Illinois. And then Bronco came. That was when we kind of went outside and got a couple breedings there. That Fancy was out of Weems Butch and Bronco was out of Cascade Timber, and they were probably the two best known bear dogs, plot bear dogs of that day. So that's when we introduced that blood into the bear pen stuff that we already had. But anyway, do you have any stories about hunting with those old dogs, Randy?
Yeah, I do. I was just sitting here thinking while you're telling that, trying to go back and recall. One statement was made earlier. If I could just divert a little bit from your question, I will get to that. There's 7.
You're a fielder. You'll chase a rabbit around the barn a couple times.
7 years age difference between you and I. Is that right? 7 or 8?
8, I believe.
Okay. So at the time you were really hunting with Dad, I did get to go some, but usually you guys would go to a tree somewhere and I would get set up on a log and just have to sit there and wait till y'all came back. Okay. And I got a few stories about that, but my hunting what happened was I got my musical desire from Dad. Dad was an old time fiddle player and I liked music more than I liked hunting because hunting would produce a coon or a rabbit or a bear, and playing music would produce girls. Do you hear me, Nubbin?
I can hear you. If you hearing that beeping, I'm getting a call, but I'll just call him back later.
No, I didn't hear a beep.
No, we didn't hear that.
Most of my hunting came about after I was grown, married, had my own family. I would work. And a lot of times I went out, and you've heard me tell this before, by myself. Now that brought great pleasure to me. But that hunting by yourself is kind of like the guy that hits a hole in one and he's playing a round of golf by himself. You can't tell anybody.
Oh, it's kind of like wetting your pants in a dark blue suit. You get a real good warm feeling, but nobody notices.
I'm not that old yet.
Nobody notices,
But those hounds brought me a lot of pleasure. I love to hear them run and tree. I love to hunt the cornfields up there. That's fun to get a good cornfield chase. That was always enjoyable for me. Didn't matter which dog I put in there. They always would produce. Most of my hunting was by myself. I had a few buddies I hunted with. Another one was a plot man named Kenny Rourke. We hunted together quite a bit. And had a buddy named Richard Kent that hunted red bones. I can't imagine anybody want to do that, but
there went 1/3 of our listening audience.
If Richard hears this, he because I've said that right to his face. Why would you want to? Yeah, it's just a joke.
Well, sometimes you can just use one word, and you don't have to be smart when somebody tells you I hunt blue ticks. Just say why.
But yeah. It was always fun for me.
Nubbin, when I come to your house, and I was there just recently, we had a good trip up to Autumn Oaks. We haven't talked about that either. We need to touch on that a little bit. But you showed me those high hills back in there, the mountains that you used to hunt, you with your buddy Ronnie and other ones. Did you ever hunt any of those places just by yourself?
No, I used to hunt by myself a lot. But I went back in those mountains some, but didn't take me too long to realize the flat country is more enjoyable than climbing them mountains.
No, yeah.
So I tried to stay out of them. But I used to hunt a lot by myself, especially with a young dog. You got to hunt them by themselves. So I would do that a lot, trying to train the young dog. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this conversation with my buddy Mark Miller up in North Carolina here today, just a text conversation about he was working some young dogs on a coon, on a turnoose coon, and how it got into high weeds on them, and they finally lost it. And I said, well, it probably just sat down on them, squatted down somehow, and them young dogs, they're running here and there, and they want everything. They want to make everything run real fast. And sometimes it don't work that way, but I always liked, and I told him, I said, it was always more pleasurable for me just to work one young dog at a time. But time and, his hunting buddy there, Cody, he's got a couple young females that are coming along real good. They're not out of our fever dog. They came from Scrubby Rogers down in Statesboro, Georgia way, and they go back to John Sturgill's old Jack dog and that mudslinging mud dog that I like. I'm seeing him on pedigrees now on these young dogs that we've got, and I'm liking seeing him there. Seems like he was a producer. But anyway, when you have these young dogs and they all seem to be about the same age, it's difficult to leave one of them home and take the other one and all that. But I've always felt that it works better if you can just hunt them one at a time.
Oh, it does. Well, they learn how to do stuff. For me, you can't make a coon dog out of a pup or a young dog unless you hunt it a lot by itself.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of it is, they do learn on their own, and I think they tend to remember those lessons better. And also, it builds their confidence.
Try to take them home on a good note, too.
Yeah.
Try to stop on something good and then put them in the box and go home.
Yeah.
I think they remember that.
Well,
the dogs that really do that, I don't know. I think they do. So I guess,
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't have any information to the contrary, so just go with it, Randy,
you can ask them dogs, but they won't tell you.
That's right. Mine just looks at me and kind of cocked her head a little bit, but I don't know exactly what that means when a dog's doing that, where they're saying, boy, that was stupid. Why are you asking me that?
That's probably what he said, Steve. You asked too many stupid questions.
That's right. Randy, do you remember any young dogs that you started there that you enjoyed?
Bliss was a young dog. I started her.
She was pretty much a bear bred plot. I had a female named Blackie that was out of that same fancy female that you mentioned. And I really liked Blackie, and I coon hunted her a lot, and I hunted her a lot with Bronco. And I felt like when I had Blackie and Bronco, when they were about 3-4 years old, I had as good a pair of coon dogs as a man could want. I just treated a lot of coons with them. And the late Mike Sumner from there in Beckley, good fella, we lost him much too soon. We hunted, he said, they don't miss, Steve. They just don't miss. And I said, oh, yeah, they'll miss. And we were on that same Isaiah Kidd farm one night, and they treed up a bush. There wasn't a gnat on that bush. And I don't know what, it wasn't a persimmon, so I don't know what it was. But anyway, we raised, Blackie turned out to be a really good dog. And I took her out to Salem, Illinois, and bred her to Everett Weems' stud dog, Puny. And I really liked Puny. I hunted with him several times, and we produced a good litter of pups. And one of those pups out of that litter with Blackie and Puny was the Jim dog that you had, Randy.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking of Jim.
Yeah, but anyway, out of that litter, what we did, we ended up breeding a daughter of Blackie. No, a daughter of Julie. Julie was out of Bronco. I'll get my stories right here somehow. But anyway, we bred to a dog down. I know, I'm back on track now. The dog that I bred to in Texas was called Solomon. He belonged to Charlie Hill. And I bred to him because he was out of that puny Blackie cross. He was a brother to Jim. And he produced good dogs. That's where I got my Wrangler dog. That's where I got my Roper dog. And those dogs were just really, really good. And out of that, I had the opportunity to get a pup from Chad Barth up in Minong, Wisconsin. If you've ever heard of Minong, that's where Jack Link jerky is made. Little old town. I think there's 17 bars and a church and 18 people. Typical Wisconsin small town. But anyway, Chad was a good friend, and I got that pup, and I think she had that Solomon dog about 3 times on her pedigree. And I ended up giving her to you, Randy. Mm-hmm. I sent her to some trainer. Some guy was supposed to hunt her on hogs, and she just didn't do that well on hogs. And I got her back, and I let you have her, and we called her Bliss. Mm-hmm. She was a pretty thing. She wasn't a big dog.
No.
She had that telltale Weems and Cascade tail on her, which kind of had a brush to it. Heavy tail.
Bushy tail.
Yeah. Those dogs had heavy tails. They had kind of almost like a flag on their tail. And real strong at the root, short. My dad was a real stickler for noticing things like that in dogs, and he used them as an indicator that the dogs had the right stuff. He knew that the tail didn't make a bear dog, but if the dog had that kind of tail, it was a pretty good chance it was going to like bear and going to run bear. That's the way he looked at it. But anyway, Bliss, yeah, you hunted her on coon, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make a comment, if I could back up just a minute, about the old Jim dog. That dog was probably more fun, just pure fun for me, than any dog. A lot of these competition hunters today would like to have had Jim, because you got him loose, he's going to be 700, 800, 900 yards, but he's going to have you a coon. And he was the strongest dog I ever tried to lead. And I really, when I went into a tree to get him, I had to put cotton in my ears. He would bust your ears. He had such a mouth on him. He was the loudest dog I ever fed. And I really enjoyed the Jim dog. I'm glad that you guys let me hunt him.
Yeah, he was a black-backed dog. Of course, his mother, Blackie, was that way. And, there was quite a few in that bloodline back then that were saddleback or black. They were more blanket-backed than they were saddle-backed. I know some of the old plot dogs just looked like a saddle of black, and the rest was brindle, but he was more or less like a blanket-backed. And his mother, we named her Blackie because she had so much black on. Nubbin, I get a lot of, this fever dog we have, he's got a lot of black on him. And people ask me if he's part black and tan, and I'd say, yeah, but not enough to hurt him any.
That's right. I started to ask you a while ago, you ever had any of that old blood in his background?
No, that is the regret that I have. I'll say 2 things. I really appreciate the guys that bred up that dog because, we like him a lot. But he doesn't have any of that old bear pen blood that we had for years. That kind of went back to 1960 with a dog named Sam. And then jump up to 1973 when Dad got the fancy pup from Everett Weems, and we bred her to a son of Sam, and that's kind of what those bear pen dogs that we had that we liked so well for so many years. But the way I was working and moving around from, West Virginia to Michigan, and then from Michigan down to North Carolina, and ultimately to Florida, and all that stuff just slipped away as it does at times. There's been a few guys that have got some of that old blood, but it gets weaker as the years go by and the generations, Yeah, I wish we could have hunted together back then, Nubbin. I don't remember what year it was that we met, but
it was in the mid-'80s, the latter part of the '80s somewhere.
Yeah, well, I was still hunting that stuff when I met you, but we didn't get to hunt then. We just kind of saw each other at the hunts and stuff until you invited me to White River, and that's when we started hunting together. But I sure wish we could have started earlier,
You can't back up and do stuff. You got to carry on what you got now.
That's for sure. That's where maybe we ought to get old Kate and breed her to fever, and we'll start us a special breed.
She's too old now. Kate will be too good.
Oh, you can breed him to a collie, or you can breed him to a Chihuahua.
Hey, well, when I first started hunting, that's all I had was gray dogs. I didn't have a rescue dog. First dog I bought when I got out of the Navy in 1964 it was supposed to be a half blue tick and a half black and tan. She was, and that's what the guy told me. But probably was. And then I bred her to a blue tick, and that's when I got into the blue ticks for about 5 generations.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into black dogs till 1980 when I was hunting. I think I might have one before that, but I know when I went to Fred's in Tennessee, in Memphis, Fred Sanders, to pick up a female out of Jimmy Harness's Queenie dog, and that's when he told me he had he had bred his male dog to a dog down in Mississippi. And he said, you ought to go down there and get you another one and raise you 2 of them. So I go down and I get $50 for old Hank.
Ooh, big price.
Big price. And brought him home where I could raise 2 of them, but I was really going to try to train the female. And she had already treeing before Hank started treeing. But anyway, I liked him. And when he started treeing, he never quit. So, long story short.
Yeah, man. Well, we didn't.
I could still be treeing.
That's right. That's right. That's like Kelly Bragg, the blue tick man from back home. Do you remember him, Randy?
A little. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we go down to Hinton, down there, Bass Lake. We used to have water races. Do you ever go to one?
Oh, yeah.
Boy, you talk about a circus now, man. We put on these money water races, and we get these souped up, fire breathing, as Jerry would say, super dyna whopping mojo doodle field trial dogs out of Ohio.
That's right.
And man, and it looked like a pharmacy around there exploded when those boys pulled out and went home, because they jack them up, jack them down, and put them in we ran a 3-division race. Now, I'm not condoning any of this, and do not try this at home. But anyway, Kelly Bragg would bring his dogs. Now, I believe in truth in advertising, folks. Kelly was just like all of us. We get old, and the dogs get, we say the deader the better.
Right, they do.
Kelly would bring some blue tick, big old male dogs, and tie them along the fence there, and that was no man's land. You did not go over there unless, you had one of Heath Hyatt's bite suits on. for those Dutch shepherds that he trains, because those dogs did not want you anywhere around the end of their chain. But I hunted with a lot of Kelly Bragg dogs over the years. Randy remembers Howard Meadows, and he always called you Randy Buck.
I appreciate you sharing that with everybody.
I don't know why. Howard was a great guy, and I've talked about him on here several times. But he liked the blue ticks. He had one named Old Kathy that there was a coon dog, no doubt about it, she was. And his buddy Bill Ormandy had a blue dog or two that was a good dog, and different ones. There was quite a few blue ticks in our area, and I think most of them kind of came from Kelly, But listeners will remember Kelly Bragg's ads in American Cooner and Full Cry.
Yeah,
you remember them? Nubbin? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best ones I remember, he said, when the dogs had been treated for 3 days, said he got to them and they'd wore a path from the tree down to the creek. They'd get a drink of water and then they'd go back to treeing. Mm-hmm. So
that'd be a good tale.
Yeah, but Kelly was a dandy, a circus performer. He's the only trapeze artist that I have known since I've been a coon hunter, except Galen Dixon out in Missouri, who tried to walk across a woven wire fence across a creek one night on that Grand Slam hunt we had, and the fence flipped, and Galen was upside down on that fence over the creek. No, Gayer Dixon was that guy's name. Gayer Dixon. But if I've messed his name up, somebody please message me or post it in Coon Hunting Conversations and I'll correct it. But I'm pretty sure that was the name. But that was the late Matt McAllister that just passed away recently was our guide on that cast. Harold Kirkus, the pre-arena guy. Did you know Harold Nubbin?
I did, yes.
Yeah, Harold. His wife showed some really nice black and tans.
Good.
Yeah, and they have both since passed on. But anyway, we didn't have many black dogs back in the country when I grew up. I had one fella down at Bolt, down the lower end of the county. Well, that's where little Jimmy Dickens was from. And he had some black and tans. His name was Tobe Bauer and his son Ronnie. And they had some black and tans, and that was the only ones that I knew of around there at all. We had
there's some around now, but not like the Walkers and all the other breeds. I think we got 4 or 5 in the finals of the World Hunt. It's going to come up this weekend.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, as we're recording this, this next weekend, not the one, this will come out on Monday, and it'll be the weekend following the airing of this podcast will be the finals of the UKC World Championship. And for those of you who got a dog in and you're going to be part of, I think there's 108 maybe that are still left. And I know I always watch the plot breed. We didn't enter, but Johnny Hager from West Virginia, from Mingo County, he and John walk up on a dog called Lug Nuts. And he was the only plot that made it through. So we wish them the very best and hope that old Lug takes it all the way. And I don't think that
we have a plot winner. That he will be the plot winner of the world.
He will be the plot world champion one way or the other.
Right, whether he hunts or not.
That reminded me of this story, and you'll forgive me because I'm using a swear word that I wouldn't normally use. My good buddy Bill Wickham, who has passed on, hunted plots, and he lived in Virginia. He later retired to Canada. he got his dog. He had a dog called Wickham's Black Bear, and he qualified him for the ACHA World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And he loads up from Virginia and drives all the way out there. Now, this is back in the day when the ACHA World Hunt was still pretty salty. They had...
yeah. When I first started hunting, it was the World Hunt.
Yep.
In the early 80s, and, till a little later on, till UKC started. But I know I hunted in that thing. I placed 17th in 80, I think it was 85. And ACHA then was a big hunt.
You got in the top 20 of that hunt. You had done something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Was that with Hank?
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, anyway, go ahead.
Best I remember, we was hunting 3 hours, and we hunted every night, and I did not have the dog in shape like I thought I did to hunt every night. Now, I was hunting him every night, but by Friday night, he was wore out. I mean, he was always, if you was in a crowd of people, he was walking around like a lion, watching everybody. Well, when we went in the auditorium to take pictures of the top 20, on Friday, he was laying in the floor going to sleep. I told somebody, this dog won't do much tonight. He wore out, and he did.
Yeah, I guess we forget about that. We didn't have all these souped-up dog foods and nutrition aids and all this stuff for the dogs back then either.
That's right. I didn't do nothing but give him dog food every day, So.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, that's the way it is. The next year I had him in shape because I swam him every day and, getting him really in shape. But, you got to have some breaks to get in the top spots. You just, there's a lot of good dogs go to these hunts, but you got to have some breaks to get in.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, back to this story a little bit about Bill Wickham. He got out there, and of course, the ACHA World Hunt, they used to do it up really big. In fact, I think one year there at Florida, Illinois, they had Jerry Clower there.
They did.
Were you there when they had Jerry?
I was when they had it in Tennessee.
Okay.
I don't know when it was, early 80s. I went there and heard him tell all of his stories and all that stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, they had a big intro, opening night, and they read off the list of the dogs that they had there. They didn't read all their names, but they listed. And they had, of course, as we'd say back home, a Blue Million tree and walkers. And he'd say, well, let's just say we got 100 walkers, we got 75 English, we got 50 black and tans, we got 30 blue ticks, we got, 15 red bones. And the guy said this on the PA, and one damn plot. And Bill never forgot that. He'd tell me that story every once in a while when I'd see him. But yeah, we've always been few, but we're mighty. Oh man! Well,
if you got a good dog and you want it to win, you can't win a big hunt unless you enter.
That is correct.
I used to tell folks, if you got a good black dog, put him in these hunts.
Yeah.
Don't blow and brag about how good he is. Put him in the hunts.
That's it. And we've been guilty of that. And that my whole breed's that way. They just don't want to take them to town. And for whatever reasons, with us, it's been more like the distance and the I had a person on Facebook this week tell me about how wealthy I was. And I told my wife, I said, did you know I was a wealthy man? She said, well, if you are, you haven't told me where you're hiding it. But I said, lady, I am driving a truck with 290,000 miles on the odometer, a 2010. I said, if I was wealthy, I think I'd step up my game a little bit. But anyway, it does. It takes money. It takes the
does.
availability, the physical capabilities to go. And, it's a lot involved. But, when you got a good one, it's, some of these guys, I'll applaud them, man. They're not ashamed. They're not afraid. They'll put them out there, and good for them. I'm 100% for it.
Well, the odds are walking dogs don't win the world hunt because there's probably 85, 75 walkers, and the rest of the breeds is split up in that last 25.
Yeah, that's true, for sure.
So the odds are right now betting favorite to be a walker dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's okay. That's what I got in my pen right now. But I'm
You
really a black and
turncoat.
tan man, but
yeah.
but I've got a walker. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, I've been that way too. I've had a few walker dogs. I love a walker dog. I like a good one of any color. You hear people say that all the time, but if you're really a coon hunter, you do. You respect a good hound. I'd like to go with that Viper dog out there that Peanut Scott hunts out there. He was with us last year.
Well, he came out there last year, but he didn't go hunting with us. Maybe he will. Now, my buddy Marcy he's got him a little Viper pup now.
Well, good. He's the Viper's a color I like. He's a tricolored English,
Yeah.
a big, good-looking dog. But I saw for the UKC World Hunt that apparently there's 2 breeds that don't have entries this year, and that's the red bone and the X-bred. I think UKC, I can't speak for them, but I think they thought that they'd get a lot more response from this X-bred program where you can cross the dogs, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it really blossoming into anything. I know that registries want to register dogs. That's how they keep the lights on.
Oh yeah,
But,
they didn't let the dogs. They closed the doors.
Yeah, but I think that the coonhound people have always been purebred folks. They enjoy picking a breed. I think NASCAR lost a lot of fans back when they went away from being Ford versus Chevy versus Plymouth versus, even Toyota or whatever, and started concentrating more on the personalities of the drivers.
Right.
Because that brand loyalty was what created these different communities of people. And it's the same like your breed, Nubbin. Black and tan people, hats off to them. They still get a pretty strong entry, a pretty big crowd at their black and tan days,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of the other associations have suffered in that regard. But, we've been jabbering here for about an hour, a little more. But there was something I wanted to talk. Oh, Autumn Oaks. Randy stepped out there for a minute. So he wasn't at Autumn Oaks anyway. So, what'd you think of it this year?
Well, it's a big crowd. I know that. And there was a lot of people, a lot of dogs, and the show is getting bigger and bigger every year. Used to be the show lasted an hour or two, and that was it. Now it's the last 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they're really pushing the show. And there was a lot of show people there showing dogs.
Well, I don't ever want to see the coonhound world evolve to where it's just show dogs like Westminster and, that we watch on TV every year. Mm-hmm. And although, my job was to bring those coonhound breeds into the AKC when I was there so that they could participate in those big shows. But, I was encouraged by the number of dogs that I saw hunting at Autumn Oaks this year. And at the same time, and I'm not throwing shade on PKC in any way, but their super stakes that's happening this week, just as we're talking, is pretty lean on entries. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, and of course they divided it up a few years ago. I was there when we did that, and into a fall and a spring hunt. But I was talking to my buddy Andy Green from down in North Carolina, maybe last night, and we're talking about the fact that some of the age divisions, they do 1, 2, and 3-year-olds, were pretty lean this year in terms of numbers of casts, so I think that's more. Here's what I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to chase a rabbit here, and I'll probably have some critics tell me I'm wrong. But this is what I think. When pro sport came along and decided to have truck hunts, it kind of diminished the importance of having a super stakes pup. Although, I guess, well, for one thing, and then when PKC made the decision to do away with the pup derbies, although here again, I think maybe you can still have pup derbies. I don't know for sure. I haven't kept up with it because I don't have a dog to run in them, and I'm too old. But anyway, the emphasis has kind of shifted away from the pups in PKC, where once it was pretty much everything. Oh, yeah. Everybody wanted a super stakes pup. Everybody wanted to be able to run for a pup ticket so they could go to the casino and win a new truck. And that was, the be-all, end-all. And then you get pro sport came along, and they're saying, okay, rather than run up and down the road for a whole month and take your chances on winning enough money to get that ticket, we'll just put the entry fee here at, some would not say it's affordable, but when you consider all the expenses you have in trying to get a pup ticket, they say for $1,200 you can come and hunt in a truck hunt, and and they started having several of them each year, and I'm thinking maybe my listeners can correct me or come online or send me a text or whatever with your views on this. But I believe that that's one of the things that's kind of taken away the I guess, appeal or whatever to pup hunts. Now, I know when I was at AKC, we started a breeders program, and they just kind of dropped you guys flat on that, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I spent the last litter I tried that I did pay up. I spent $300 or $400 getting them all paid up with AKC, and then they stopped that program that year.
Yeah, yeah.
That money's gone and for nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was because I was championing for that while I was there or what, because we started it while I was there. Jerry Mall was there, Jimmy Phillips and Lindell Price and David McKeon were all working there to try to promote that program and all. But when we, most of us left, that thing just went away, and that's a shame. But anyway, I think it's a sign of the times. I just don't think that the interest is there in pups like it used to be. You can go in Pro-Hound and look at, they used to run a Pups on the Way, and you could go and see who had Super Stakes pups for sale and the phone number and all, and you want to get a Super Stakes pup, there you go.
Yeah, one time if you had a litter of pups, if you didn't have them super stated, they didn't nobody want them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Absolutely right. Well, that's not meant to be a criticism. It's just an honest observation on what's going on out there. And I'm just thankful I don't have to make those decisions anymore. And you should be too.
Oh, I'm thankful to still be here. As old as I am, I'm supposed to already be gone.
As Nathan Ed says, you and I both are standing in the checkout line.
That's right. We're in the checkout. I was telling somebody yesterday that when I graduated high school here at Vincent, there was 65 kids in the graduating class. That was all. And right now, there's 7 boys still alive and 15 girls. The rest of them dead.
Yeah, Father Time marches on. Randy, what was your graduating class? You remember?
It was over 700.
Yeah, he was 8 years behind me. Mine was over 400.
There probably wasn't 700 in the whole school when I graduated.
Yeah.
But I'm way out here in the country, you know. I'm out in the stick.
Yeah. You gotta put diapers on the chickens to keep the hoot owls from attacking them, don't you?
That's right. There's one hooting up behind the house this morning. Of course, I live out here in the country. That's what I prefer to live.
Oh, absolutely. You live in a beautiful place. Beautiful place. I enjoy coming up.
I'm looking out. I'm sitting on the front porch now, and I see 2 houses. That's all I see to the left. I don't see none to the right.
Yeah.
They come on down there, but I see 2 houses from right here.
Yeah, well, I can look out my window here in Florida and tell what my neighbor had for breakfast.
Probably.
Nah, it's not quite that bad, but I get you, man. I get you. That's the way of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've punished these good people long enough. I do appreciate my listeners.
They're probably tired of hearing us talk by now.
You think?
Some of them have cut the deal off.
Well, I do want to say something right here. I deeply appreciate, we were talking about Autumn Oaks and we kind of got away from it.
We did.
I thought Autumn Oaks was great this year. I think that the field, actually they call it the hunting ops. I always want to call it field operations because that's what we called it when I was there. Right. The hunting ops department, Alan Gingrich and Trevor Wade, who is over the coonhound portion of that department, do a phenomenal job. And those guys absolutely bend over backwards to be nice to me when I'm at Autumn Oaks, and I want to publicly thank them for that. But that aside, I think they do a great job, and everybody's been complaining lately about UKC being late on getting paperwork back to them, registration. I was encouraged this week to see an announcement by UKC that they brought in 2 new people to address this problem. Now, Taylor Armstrong, who's I think the director of the registration department, will still be there, but these are 2, I don't know if they're more, I would say that they're more in a quality control type function. And their job is going to be to straighten out that situation and get the papers out on a timely manner. And I applaud UKC for doing that, and I hope that they're successful in every way.
I do too.
But anyway, the crowds at Autumn Oaks were great. There were more on Saturday, as there always is. Lots of food booths and things like that now. I bought about a 50-pound bag of caramel corn home to Ella.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that big bag. I thought, what you gonna do with that thing?
She likes it.
Let me say this about the crowd.
Yeah,
I was surprised, not surprised, but when they were calling dogs out, it's either Friday or Saturday. I don't remember which day I did that. But I walked out through that crowd of men. There's probably 200 or more people standing out there waiting to be called out. And I walked down through there just to see how many I knew. Used to, if I went to a big hunt, I knew a lot of them. I walked down through there, and I knew 2 or 3 people standing in that crowd that I recognized. So that was it. That was it.
That's right. There's been a changing of the guard, so to speak. I mean,
Exactly right.
the guys our age have graduated out by one means or the other, and there's a whole new group. And sometimes I lose sight of that, and when I try to explain things to some of these younger people, and they, as my dad would say, they look at me like a calf looking at a new gate,
Well, I even walked down all the breed had a table set up.
Yeah.
I didn't know not many of them might knew one or two of them, but I said,
Yeah.
man, you're a thing of the past, man. You don't know anybody around here.
Oh, it's just like that wine you make, buddy. It gets better with age.
Well, I just put some up last week, muscadine. I've got 3 6-gallon jugs of muscadine bubbling, and I've got 2 a 6 and a 5-gallon of scuppernine bubbling. So next year it'll be ready to drink.
All righty. Yeah, that's the magic elixir at the White River every year but that's when you really need to bring out that D-lyre that Jeff has, is when we get back from the woods and sitting around the camp. That's where that thing would come in popular. We get a little bit of that nectar of the vine there. I helped you a little bit. I didn't do much, but I got to help you pick some muscadines the other day.
You did. When you got back, I told her we got back here about 2:00 one afternoon, and I said, "Come on, we got to pick muscadines." So we did.
So I'm an accomplice now, I guess.
Well, I tell everybody I'm not an alcoholic, but I drink 8 ounces of wine every night, and that's about it.
Well, that's right. It's a good nightcap, man. It beats NyQuil or...
That's right. Make you sleep better.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, it's been an hour and 15 minutes here of absolute podcasting joy to be on here with my brother and my bestest bud, Mr. Nubbin Moore from the great state of Alabama. Nubbin, you and I'll be seeing each other again before we know it, man. It's only, we're going a little bit earlier this year, so
we're going a couple of weeks early, yeah.
Yeah, so this is now September, so we're only a couple months away from White River time again.
That's right.
I saw...
I'll be ready to go.
That's right. I posted a picture of a cabin, and our buddy Randy Smith from Mississippi said, "Boy, that's a nice cabin." And I said, "Yeah, I wish we had one big enough to hold our whole crew just like that on the White River. We'd be all
That'd
set."
Be good. There's probably one over if we could find it.
That's right. That's right. Okay, folks, it's the time to, as the old saying is, pee on the fire and call the dogs. And it's been a good visit today with Randy Fielder and Nubbin Moore. And we want to thank my good friends, Buddy and Jess Woodbury out at W Hunting Supply for making this possible. If you wonder where we are, it's an easy answer. It's always the same. We're gone to the dogs.